Now, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo has become the 5th governor of Nigeria's southeastern state of Anambra. Soludo, a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, was sworn in at a modest event that took place at the government house in Awka, the capital. Now, Professor Soludo began by springing into action with promises to do whatever it takes to end every form of criminality in the state. The new Anambra governor read the Riot Act, warning that whoever is involved in springing up insecurity will actually be dealt with. Now, this statement was made in reference to the increased killings in the state and other actions taken by separatist groups and all of that. Now, the task ahead is grave and is one that the newly elected governor hopes to do his best to deliver, because considering his pedigree, there's a lot of expectations. Well, our correspondent monitored that swearing in. Abel Ejikeme brings us those details of Soludo's inauguration.
I, Charles Chukwuma Soludo, do solemnly swear.
The oath of office, signaling an end to the era of Willie Obiano as governor of Anambra State after he constitutionally allowed 2 terms of 4 years. In his place, Governor Charles Soludo, a professor of economics and former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He's wasted no time with pomp and pageantry associated with swearing-in ceremonies and has hit the ground running with lined-up meetings to commence his reign as governor.
Within the next 1 week, the list of commissioners will be laid before the House of Assembly. Tomorrow, we will head to Okoko in Obaru local government area and pass off Onitsha and Indemili as we signpost our commitment to fundamental urban regeneration, beginning with the greater Onitsha metropolis.
Governor Soludo reels out his plans he believes will transform Anambra State into a smart mega city. Top on the list says it's an executive order suspending all revenue contracts operating in parks, markets, and roads. The plan will ensure Onitsha, the commercial nerve center of the state, is rid of revenue touts.
Consequently, as from tomorrow, the 18th March 2022, if anyone asks you to pay him or her cash as revenue to the government in the parks, markets, and roads, such a person must be a thief. And market unions must also stop harassing the customers. Our detailed plan rests on 5 key pillars. The first is law and order, and that is homeland peace and security. The second, economic transformation as Nigeria's next axis of industrial, tech, and leisure. And fourth is competitive and progressive social agenda to deal with education, health, youth, women, and vulnerable groups. And then governance, rule of law, and the rebirth of our value system. And finally, to aggressively tackling our existential threat posed by the environment. And that's moving towards a clean, green, planned, and sustainable cities, communities, and markets.
For the professor of economics, he will aim at improving public sector investment, which he says is less than $100 million per annum. Soludo says he will fix that broken trust between citizens and government through judicious use of taxes.
For example, to effectively implement our ambitious agenda, we need annual investment levels of about 25 to 30% of the state gross domestic product, GDP. And this will come to, in dollar terms, to like about 2.58 to 3.09 billion dollars. That's the level of investment you're required to make here to make the kind of dent we need. And at current levels, our public sector investment is less than $100 million. The gap seems daunting, but we are undaunted. The internally generated revenue of the state is barely 0.5% of the state GDP. And this presents immense opportunity as well as a threat in the context of a rentier culture, where the social contrast and trust between the citizen and the government is broken.
Dignitaries here are optimistic that the Governor Soludo administration will focus on developing the southeastern states.
Knowing his background, he will focus on the critical area of development, which is education, health, and pulling people out of poverty. And he emphasized this here because governance and government is about caring for the poor. We have not cared enough for the poor people. You could even see what is happening in the country today. While the poor people are looking for food to eat, scarcity of bread, scarcity of diesel and everything. We are all preoccupied about the next election. That shouldn't be so.
The high point of this speech is that no resource will be wasted. Every resource will be plowed into making the quality of life of the people of Anambra better. And that is really what governing is about. I think a very, very critical part of this symbolic but very powerful statement, he is going to drive a vehicle produced in Anambra. The things that you get served here when you come will be things produced in Anambra. And part of the challenge of development in Nigeria is that we are the biggest consumers of the things that we don't produce.
The expectations of India Anambra are high. The big dreams of a glorious future reside in the hearts of millions of people for whom this mandate means everything. The coming months or years will determine if this colorful inaugural speech has been matched with corresponding actions. Abel Ejikeme, Arise News.
Well, for more on this, we are now being joined by two policy analysts, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who is a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, and Oo Nwoye, who is the Executive Director of TechCircle, a technology advisory and investment firm. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's start with you, Professor Odinkalu. In all of this, we've seen this new governor giving us an impression that he's actually out to embark on action, and he has told us that he has a mix of several ideologies that make up his driving force. And let me quote him. He says that as a true progressive, that he intends to combine the ideologies of Zig's neo-welfarism, Awolowo's scientific socialism, Aminu Kano's democratic humanism, to form what he sees as the Pan-African market progressivism. Very interesting resume here that the Prof intends to pursue. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Samna. Good evening. Nigeria, as Nigerians, we love action. We love our action governors, and remember Raja Rasaki in Lagos, action governor. I don't think what Governor Soludo laid out yesterday was about action. It was a lot more thoughtful than that. Okay? And you saw it, different people, of course, are going to emphasize different parts of the inaugural. But he appreciates the subliminal power of symbolism in government. So start with several things he did yesterday already. Because he's the governor today, a lot of palm wine tappers in different parts of Anambra State that never got any value or sense of belonging in government made a lot of money. Why? They supplied the palm wine that people consumed yesterday at the inauguration. A lot of local farmers got recognition from their state because they supplied the food that was eaten. Because he is governor, a company in Anambra State Anambra State can claim to be the only state in Nigeria whose governor drives a car made in the state. Now, those things are more powerful than accent, what we call accent. And he articulated a coherent philosophy of, this is the first time, let me repeat, this is the first time that a governor in Nigeria is articulating a coherent philosophy of government. You may or may not agree with that philosophy, but it now exists. And it sets a standard that other governors should begin to follow and presidents should begin to follow. Government is not artisanal work. It requires ideas. And that is what he has laid out. Let us look at the ideas, not accents.
Very interesting indeed. And I'll bring this same question to you, Oo Nwoye. What do you make of that ideology, Pan-African market progressivism?
Yes, thank you very much. I think Professor Odinkalu has said it accurately. Most times we say governor, and what he does is give contracts, action. He just does things, right? There's no method. There's no thinking behind it. But what he's saying is that he's combining two ideologies. right? He understands that the free market allows the economy to grow, but unbridled capitalism can leave people behind. So he's combining social welfareism, thinking of the poor, thinking of the downtrodden, thinking of people that cannot afford. At the same time, he understands the efficiency of capitalism. So the fact that he has laid this out, it means that everyone knows where they stand. Most people don't transition from pre-election to post-election. So he has moved on from electioneering. He has said, "This is how I'm going to. This is the logic behind my way of thinking." So if you align, if you understand, if you're a capitalist and you understand that you want to do business, Anambra is open for business. If you're downtrodden and you don't have a good educational background, you can't afford healthcare, Anambra will take care of you. So I think it's impressive, and and we should look forward to seeing more of that in other states. Let us understand the ideology behind their approach.
Interesting indeed. And now let's talk about how the All Progressives Grand Alliance can support this sort of ideology, because it's one thing for Soludo to come with this ideology, but he needs the party to be able to help support him. He needs the State House of Assembly to be able to support him. How can Soludo make good use of these different organs of the society in Anambra State to drive the vision? Because he can't do it alone, Professor Odinkalu.
And he did say that much. That was where he began. The first word in that inaugural address was umunnem. Umunnem in Igbo language means what? My brothers and sisters. So he is thinking of, and all through the inaugural address, you saw the emphasis on human asset as the biggest asset in the development and governance of Anambra State. All right? He articulated that from beginning to the end. And in every line and paragraph of that inaugural, you could see it. Now, this is more than a party political project. This is not, and by the way, the inaugural, this is a man with a profound sense of history, the personal, the political, the institutional. And it's not just about Zeke and Aminu Kano and Awolowo. He also talked about the history of UPGA, the United Progressive Grand Alliance, that he also involved the Middle Belt. And so he tied the fate of Anambra State. It's not just the institutions of Anambra. He also tied the fate of Anambra State to the country, to Nigeria, and the hopes and aspirations of Nigeria. Anambra cannot do well if Nigeria continues to fail. So it's more than just using the institutions of Anambra State. Obviously, that is very important. And he talked about the measures he's going to be putting through the legislature for that purpose. But in addition to those measures, we do need the asset value of Anambra State to come through. And that's why he said he is the chief marketer of Anambra State. And if you produce in Anambra and it meets the standards of the state, he will be your chief marketer. That is the other thing that we are not talking about. The governor as the salesman with pride of the state and all that it produces.
Very interesting indeed. I guess this has to do with the progressivism that he's actually trying to bring into the polity. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how the state has so many billionaires, and if indeed they'll be cooperating with him and not fomenting trouble in the state like it's happened in the past. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horizon TV. I'm Somna Sambo, and we'll be discussing the inauguration of Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo as the 5th governor of Anambra State in southeast Nigeria. I mean, he comes with a lot of pedigree in the private sector, in the public sector. He's a former presidential advisor, former central bank governor, and a first-class economist. So all of this combined together in a governor, I mean, it means there's a lot of expectation. Well, some have joked that Professor Soludo is actually well versed with the issues of governance as a governor, because he had governed the central bank before, which is regarded as the 37th governorship position in Nigeria's political circles. And I still have with me two policy analysts, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who is a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, and Oo Nwoye, who is a policy analyst and executive director of TechCircle, a technology advisory and investment firm. And I come to you, Oo. Isn't Professor Charles Soludo caught in trouble already in Anambra State? Because we have been told that some people have become billionaires by operating the apparatus of collecting taxes and revenues, whether legally or illegally in Anambra State. And here we have a Soludo coming to say, look, all motor parks, all markets, and all of that, nobody should be paying monies to anyone at the moment. What do you make of that order?
You see, I think there's one saying I like, which is follow who no road. You see, one of the things that we should understand is that everything comes from a thought process. We have found out that the way things have been has been very inefficient. When you collect revenue disparately from a few people benefiting from the revenue system, it hasn't helped the state in any way, shape, or form. So a new governor has come in and stated that this is the principle at which we would operate now. So it's a gross minority that would be affected. So the governor is a governor for over 5 million people in Anambra State. So if there are 10 or 5 people that will be inconvenienced by this way forward, I don't think it's going to be a big issue. But most importantly, you have to point out that if you look at the speech, when Professor Soludo talked about that particular policy, he said he's going to look for a way to train those people that have been collecting these revenues. They can become the formal revenue collectors. The challenge has always not been the revenue collection. The challenge has been the inefficiency in the collection and inefficiency in the directing of that revenue. So it's not as if we're going to have all the motor park revenue collectors losing their jobs or whatnot, right? What is going to happen is that there's going to be a structure and a system in place. In every part of the world, the revenue is distributed, revenue collection, taxation, fining, monitoring of the roads is done by the community, by the people. So these same people will end up collecting revenue and supporting the government. But what is going to happen is that it's going to work in a certain framework. It's going to function in a certain framework that allows for efficiency and plugs all the gaps and maximizes the utilization of the funds collected for the state.
Interesting. And Professor Odinkalu, I'm asking this question because, I mean, when former Governor Willie Obiano was in the saddle, we saw people like Prince Ato Eze, I mean, challenging the governor several times and taking some actions and telling him that, look, you don't embarrass me in this state or else I will use the powers that be in Abuja to trouble you in this state. And we could see that happening here and there. Anambra is said to have several billionaires, and most of them don't want to live by the rules of the state because they know someone in Abuja. How do you think Professor Soludo will be able to contain all of these challenges that may erupt as an academic and then an economist himself?
But Somna, I think he already did that. He acknowledges that he's not a magician. He's not armed with a magic wand. This is not about Soludo. This is about Anambra State. By the way, for the Nigerians for the viewers who wonder, Soludo in Igbo language means follow the path of peace. So this is a man actually whose time has come. You've got to. I certainly see a bit of that in this narrative. Okay. Now, by the way, Anambra State's billionaires were the first people to key into the Soludo project because they looked at the alternative and they knew that a reign of locusts did not offer them anything. And so if you looked at the election in November 2021, you would see that Anambra's billionaires actually had a consensus that it had to be this person. And I don't have any doubt that they are going to offer him good faith fraternity in turning the state around. Because if the state turns around, they make more money, and all of us are safer. But above all, we have a homeland we can all go back to, and that's the thing. A lot of those so-called billionaires can't go home anymore, you know. If Soludo guarantees that they can go home, they will support him. And that is why this thing is so enchanting. And you can see today, all of us are excited who come from the Southeast or who come from Anambra State, because the possibilities are incalculable. And if you can unleash the Southeast as he promises to lead in doing, what follows is we can unleash Nigeria, because the Southeast is everywhere. As he told you, 11 million in the north, 7 million in Lagos State. That's enough to turn the country around, and that's what this project is about.
A lot of people are beginning to say that Soludo.
Sumner, can I come in here too? I just want to come in here and double down on that. So if you look at two things, I think I would disagree with your how do I say, conflating the what do you call it, the cabal that collects revenue that would be affected by efficiency in systems with the Anambra billionaires like Innocent, who we have seen Soludo already supported. You can see from Soludo's manifesto, we can see that trade and investment is one of the high priority areas. But let's go back to 2005. I think when it was time for the banking reform, I think the biggest boys across the nation were the bankers. And when Soludo articulated his vision of the modern way of banking, most of the banks couldn't, they had to recapitalize the banks.
Yeah, it was right?
25 billion. Yes, but then everyone was saying, oh, the bankers, the bank MDs will fight him to a standstill. The thing is this, once you see who know road, right? And the person articulates a brighter vision, like Professor Odinkalu has said, these people can't go back home. Most of these successful billionaires, we're not talking of the touts. I think those ones do not represent the success of industrious Anambra billionaires. Yeah. We're talking of those that may not be aligned politically for whatever reason. But of course, Anambra billionaires are very, very upright people, right? But what we're saying is that when they can see the vision from being small, when they have seen it happen before, the small-time bankers are now global financial entities, then we're saying we're coming to the state to replicate this. Anybody, remember that politics is just a means to govern. It's a means to put your ideology on the community. So when they see that this ideology of Professor Soludo has worked before, they will key in. It's not going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Very interesting submission you've got. But the politicians are already watching Professor Soludo's movement, and they are saying that he may run into some hitches. Because right from his transition committee, we saw lots of technocrats populating that. And isn't it right for those politicians who worked for him to be incorporated into governance? Some people are saying that if Soludo plays the technocratic politics too much and leaves the politicians behind, that in itself may lead to the issues of insecurity. Prof, I want you to address that issue.
We can walk and chew gum, okay? The politicians did their bit, obviously. That's why he was able to get a party ticket. But do you know the number of Anambra people who died or who have been killed in the run-up to the elections? There are lots of dead bodies, okay? And we've also got to mourn and honor all of those people and their memories and the sacrifices they made. And the women of Anambra State who bore the brunt and who saw the guns and refused to yield. Everybody who voted on the 6th of November 2021 is a hero and a shiro or a heroine who must be honored. And what the governor offers is a deal that integrates the interests of all of those people and hands all of this back to the Anambra people to say, I am your employee. If you think what I've laid out is not proper, please say so. Now, my sense is, and I think Oo has made the point, our people in Anambra actually want good things, whether it's the high up there, the billionaires they talk about, or the low down, our grandparents in the village, they're looking for the same thing. And if they get that from the governor whom they've elected, and they get the idea that the governor is offering the best that he can, and not stealing from the state. And there is no question this is not a governor who has time to steal from the state. I think you're going to see people key in. That's the word you've heard OO use here several times. Key in. This is about keying in and making governance a multi-partnership enterprise, not just one owned by the governor and the politicians.
And don't you think that Professor Soludo runs the risk of having challenges with APGA? Because some of them are already thinking that Soludo is going to be bringing commissioners who are based in Lagos. People who are based in Lagos, people who are based in Abuja are not necessarily people who helped him to win the election in Anambra State, based on what they saw in the composition of the transition committee. Are you not worried for Soludo from that perspective?
Not at all. So what you should understand is that, again, we have moved from electioneering and politicking to governance, right? The transition is literally a transition team. That is like I don't want to overdose on tautology. But the thing is this: if you look at the transition team, it had almost 180 people, right? All volunteers, and it was made up of politicians, technocrats, people within the state, people outside the state in Nigeria, people from outside the country. Remember, the overall idea or the overall goal of Soludo is to make Anambra the best place to live, work, play, and be free. So when you look at these politicians you talk about, who are human beings, the thing is that most of them, you might assume, every single one of them looks at politics. They look at politics as a means to having that good life that they wish for. So if somebody thinks that the only way I could live a good life, I could be safe, is if I have a political office so I can move around with sirens so I'll be safe. If the person finds out that, no, I don't need to move around with sirens to be safe, remember that there's a reason behind anybody's action or thinking. And again, you have to understand that Professor Soludo has been one day into government. If we start analyzing the number of positions, the number of jobs, tasks, it's going to be more than enough. Even if they say, okay, only people from a political party should fill all these roles, they can't, because the business of governance is really serious, and it cuts across strata, from the executive to the legislative to the local government. Right, so there's enough to go around, a lot of responsibility to go around. Everybody's eager to work. Don't look at the politicians as people that are just trying to politic, right? They're eager to contribute so they can see the society that they are praying for. So once they start seeing that thing happening, I think everybody's going to be calm, at peace, and happy.
Well, we can only wish him well in that aspect, because from experience, politicians always don't like technocrats coming to take positions from them after winning elections. But let's go to the plans by Soludo to build a digital economy. He said that as part of the fourth industrial revolution, he hopes to focus more on tech. Now, you are a tech expert. What sort of advice would you be giving Soludo as to how to build a digital economy that's all-inclusive, that creates jobs and makes governance, the functions of government actually better for the people of Anambra, and how to build a leaner government that works efficiently using technology?
So there's so many things that you've put in there, but what I would say is that Professor is right on track. He has already said it. So most times, again, which is why it's important to have an ideology, and then other people that know that they fit into this ideology will come and join you. There are almost 14 million vacant jobs, global digital jobs globally, that are unfilled. Right, so it's such an irony that there's so much unemployment, whereas there's so many jobs to be filled. If you look at the transition committee, they had so many subcommittees. One of the most exciting subcommittees is what they call It's Everything Technology. It was because of the importance which they attached technology, they created a committee that worked with all committees: security, healthcare, education, land. There was a committee that ensured that everything was looked at through the prism of technology. So we're talking of understanding the importance of technology in governance. So that is already in place. We're talking of open governance. We're talking of digitization of identity systems. We're talking of digitization of land. We're talking of digitization of the judiciary. All that is on one side. Then when we talk about technology itself, building digital skills is one of the fastest way to wealth in Nigeria. We are seeing companies like Paystack, we're seeing companies like Flutterwave. A lot of investment is being attracted to Nigeria, but we see a lot of focus on Lagos. But Anambra State, the Southeast region, has a lot of talents. So what is going to be happening now is that we now have a governor that says, I will lead from the front. I will be your chief marketer. So we're going to start seeing a lot of people come back home to support digital skills training. Right, we're going to see a lot of support from the government for those that are contributing in that area. We're going to see a lot of infrastructure drive. Hopefully, the elimination of right of way for provision of broadband everywhere. We're seeing a lot of economic enablement plans for. Thankfully, the states will now start being able to provide power locally. So once we start putting all these things in place, the good thing about technology is that from anywhere, hopefully from my village in Anambra, someone will be able to start a technology company that will take on the world globally.
Yeah. Very interesting indeed. And we hope you will be there to support him with your ideas and, offer your services if the government wants to do that. But,
definitely.
Prof, I come to you. There's a lot of expectation on Professor Soludo as a technocrat to deliver, because we've seen technocrats in government and sometimes they go in and unfortunately they are unable to deliver. How can Professor Soludo build a lean government, a government that's a model not just for Nigeria but for West Africa, and how can he get the resources apart from waiting for Abuja to be able to execute some of these beautiful ideas that he has in place?
Well, you're asking me to write several PhD dissertations there, and we don't have the time for that. Well, what is clear is this. Anambra State is 4,416 square kilometers. That is about the average size of a local government area in Niger State. Okay? Now, Niger State is 76,300 square kilometers with 25 local government areas. Now, what does this mean? Essentially, we can pave over every blade of grass we want to pave over in Anambra State. With the skills, we've got the human assets, the capabilities, and all we've got to do is create capable government. And you've heard it from OO. Everything technology. Tech gives you efficiency that you will not otherwise have, and effectiveness and scale as well. And so efficiency with scale under right leadership gives you possibilities to leapfrog a lot of the challenges we've got already. Anambra State has got capable human capital. And the governor said yesterday, that is the basis for building. Every other thing will be founded on that. We've got lean land mass. We've got a capable population. Why is it not possible to envision a new thing?
We'll just go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the conversations. I'm Somna Sambo, and we've been having a chat on Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo's inauguration as the 5th governor of Anambra State, and we had the technological glitch there earlier on, but I'm told Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who's the former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, is back, and then Oo Nwoye, the Executive Director of TechCircle, is back. Prof, I'm sorry for that glitch. But I would just want to ask you this question as we try to round off this conversation, because it's one that a lot of people are hoping that Soludo will be able to use wisdom to manage. How do you think he will be interfacing with the issues of IPOB and the closures of market every Monday, not just in that state, but in the southeast of the country?
Let me just assure you, it was not Anambra billionaires that caused the technical glitch, nor was it village people. Sometimes that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
Now, again, you saw his 5-point agenda. Everything is boiled down to 5 points. Number 1 is safety and security, or law and order. And on that, it's a mixture. Again, he recognizes that there are multiple assets we've got to deploy here. And this is the first governor I've heard in the country, indeed, the first elected political office holder who used the expression on his first day in office, in his first act, political capital. I am going to spend my political capital. And he recognizes that addressing the insecurity challenge in the Southeast requires a multiplicity of tools, intergovernmental affairs, interfacing with the federal government and assets of the federal governments and agencies, relationships with the neighbors. If you look at Anambra, for instance, you would see that the places with the greatest security challenges just happen to share borders with Imo State, the Anambra borderlands, Ihiala local government area, Newi South, Urumba, Aguata, are the places where you've got the greatest challenges. They also happen to have borders with Imo State. And so there is a transboundary element to this challenge that requires interfacing with other places. But he also talked about the clergy and the communities and the things that will be done with them. And he's begun to address those today. Now, but he's also offered a deal to some of the people involved in this violence, because if you look at the numbers, you will see that the Southeast has the highest proportion of unemployed and underemployed young people in all of Nigeria, bar none. It's in the 50s. It's about between 50 and 56%. Now, so you're not going to sort out this problem without providing good governance, a promise of a better deal to the young people. That will take time. You're going to offer them alternatives. That will take imagination. It's going to take credibility. It's going to take political capital. And that is what he's offering here. Okay. So it's a complex mix of tools we have at our disposal.
Very interesting. And I'll come to you too. How do you think Governor Soludo should handle that critical aspect of engaging with IPOB, the closure of markets every Monday, and how that has created insecurity in itself and leading to altercation with federal security forces?
I think it's an unfortunate, complex situation. So first of all, we have the aspect of criminals going under the guise of the agitations. So we have the agitations, then we have criminals going under the guise of the agitations. So I want to quote from his speech. He said, to IPOB, ESN, MASOB, as well as disparate armed groups in the forest, it is time to interrogate both the purpose and means of your campaign. So he is not attacking them. He understands that some people feel offended, some people feel aggrieved, right? But he understands that the way to engage, this is a new beginning, this is a new chance. And the second thing that Professor Soludo said in his speech was that endorsing the traditional rulers and bishops' peace and conflict resolution community to have a tripartite agreement and understanding with the state governors, with the federal government, and let everybody come to an understanding on what's the purpose. I doubt that the purpose of anybody that is aggrieved is just to kill people. There is a purpose which they claim. Where we disagree with the methods, we have to still try and see how we could address the challenges. So this is a new beginning. And Professor Odinkalu has talked about it, political capital. That is an asset. And unfortunately, people don't know that political capital is there, but it whittles out with time, whether you use it or not. So for someone to recognize it, that he has this capital, that is going to deploy it, is very, very hopeful. Secondly, again,
just very quickly, because I'm told that I don't have enough time left.
Yes. So in summary, his hands on it. We have the carrot and the stick. We're going to consult and we're going to tackle things, right? And we have to take care of the economic issues too. So there is a quite complex, and Professor Soludo has a complex capacity to deal with such complex issues.
Interesting indeed. It's a huge task ahead of him. Security issues, I mean, right from day one, he actually faced security issues at the inauguration ground there, where there was a mixture of slaps going on here and there. But that's a discourse for another day. We hope you gentlemen will also help him with the best advice to handle women who are also aggrieved with certain situations that will lead to such an altercation. Professor Chidi Odinkalu is a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. here in Nigeria. And Oo Nwoye is a tech expert, and he is also a policy analyst and executive director of TechCircle. We must thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show and helping us understand the politics of Anambra and how Governor Charles Chukwuma Soludo will help to bring in a new level of understanding in governance and then creating innovations.